Welcome to another episode of Behind the Shield. I'm your host today, Jason Shropshire. And today I've got
Mike Strohecker is
Mike
my name.
Strohecker with me.
Yes.
I like for us to introduce ourselves.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, I'm Mike Strohecker.
And it's inclement weather week here today at Infusion Points. We've had like an inch of ice and a whole lot of snow. And we have a guest with us joining remotely, but an internal guest, Tanner.
Oh, that's my cue. Yeah. My name is Tanner. I'm from the advisory team. Just excited to talk about some RFCs today. So glad to rejoin the podcast. Some of the viewers have already seen me on a couple previous episodes. So excited to be back on it, but from my office. So
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for joining us, Tanner. And sorry you couldn't make it in. But let's get straight into it if we can.
Absolutely. We have a lot to cover.
Yeah, there is a lot to cover.
There's like 6 RFCs.
Yeah, so about that, there's 6 RFCs that were dropped kind of all at the same time, right? This was the threat from the PMO of releasing them over Christmas holiday. I think wasn't well received by the FedRAMP PMO team,
Right.
So they chose to delay it a little bit, but and then if you listen to some of the videos that the PMO is putting out as well, they made it really clear that at first they were thinking about trickling these out. It really started as one giant RFC, and they were like, okay, this is too much to consume and put out for public comment. But these things are so interrelated that we have to release them kind of all together.
Right. Right.
So the PMO has released them as a kind of a set of 6, and I think most notably is that this is seen as the overall the vision outlined in the OMB memo that came out of the FedRAMP legislation that was passed a couple of years ago, almost 3 years ago now, I think. This is really the completeness of that vision, right? Like 20X was kind of the start of it. I know that, prior to the new administration, there was already some small tweaks that were being made.
Mm-hmm.
But, the PMO was really told to, hey, we got to accelerate this. We got to kind of complete the vision of the legislation and the OMB memo. And notably, like these 6 RFCs is seen as like, hey, this is it. Like from here on, it should just be small tweaks, allegedly.
Allegedly, right? So in those small tweaks, he dropped 6 RFCs.
Yeah.
On January the 13th.
Yep.
And it's like,
and
holy smokes!
And we're like what 3 weeks late?
We are 3 weeks late to this, but
but we have been a little busy.
A little busy.
A little busy with our own 20X moderate that we've been working with the PMO, as well as helping a customer get prepared in record time for a DoD IL5 that we just started the audit this week.
And one of the other things we want to do, Jason, is, because I've seen on a few of these, there's been kind of a lack of interaction on the Git repository. So I want to encourage people as we walk through these, go on there and make comments. It's like, it's really the only way you're going to affect a change.
Yep.
For the PMO to see the feedback. And I know, I would imagine that the PMO's office would really appreciate it. Because I'm just looking at the first one now. Well, I've looked at it previously, but I'm re-looking at RFC 19 now, and there's really not a whole lot of comments here.
A couple of things about the framework of this, though.
Yeah,
there's this general discussion thread.
Yeah,
for Q&A, right? So the idea is when you go into each RFC has a different discussion thread, and those are for public comment. But the PMO will not answer Q&A in those threads.
Yeah, right, exactly.
So this general discussion thread is more for that Q&A back and forth banter or just general conversation. But they want public comment, especially if a conversation results in something that's, hey, this would be good public comment. Then you should pick that up and duplicate that over in the public comment area. Just know that the PMO won't respond directly there.
Right.
Now there's how many, a couple weeks left?
There are a couple weeks. So there are staggered end dates for the RFC. So looking at the first few, it looks like they were dropped on January 13th. Tanner, keep me honest, looks like the first few end on February the 19th for the public comment, and the last couple are going to end on February the 26th. So they did stagger the closing on a few of these, on half of them. So it looks like the first half closed on the what did I say, the 16th? 19th, I'm sorry. And then the last three the following week, essentially.
Cool. All right, well, jumping straight into RFC 19.
Yeah.
And for those of you on YouTube, we are sharing these via video, but we're going to try to, for folks who are listening audience, particularly you, Pete, we're going to try to make sure that we do this via audio too, or that we, don't rely on the visual cues so much. But so the first RFC 19 reporting assessment costs. So this really gets behind, part of the legislation implored the program management office to gather information on how much assessments cost and other costs of the process, right?
Because, there was a piece of that required them to regularly
easy for you to say,
review this and review these independent assessment services and what those costs are. So I really think this is a positive move to meeting that goal, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And primarily what they're looking for are the independent assessment costs, right? And there's a little bit of a split in requirements between Rev 5, and there's a separate section kind of on Rev 5, and then a separate section on 20X requirements as well. And it's interesting that, with Rev 5, specifically, they're asking you to basically go back, if you're getting like let's say you're 5 years in, you've been authorized that whole time for the intermediate assessments, or each annual assessment. They still want you to go back and pull like your original costs, like going as far back as you can. And the penalties for not providing this information are pretty stiff. They talk about revoking, what was it?
Corrective action failure to meet this requirement will result in denial of authorization and a 3-month resubmission penalty. So this is for new submissions. I believe it's the same 3-month corrective action for resubmissions or services that are already authorized.
Right.
And the ongoing assessment cost is a public notification. There's a grace period, but then a revocation of certification for at least 6 months.
Yeah, and there's a little bit of the new jargon that's been introduced. We haven't got to RFC 20 yet, but they're already starting to use that new jargon from RFC 20 in RFC 19 and throughout all the others as well. So Rev 5 being the new FedRAMP certified path.
Yeah, exactly. And really, my experience going through it the first time, I was a little bit lost in like this one and in the next one, just a little bit. But, obviously there's more context in the other RFCs that kind of feed into this one.
Exactly.
So until you've read them all as a set, that's when it's going to make them probably the most sense.
Yeah, I think one of the things, sorry, Tanner.
No, I was just going to say, I found that reviewing everything up till the requirements that are being denoted. So, Jason, if you scroll back up, basically like the summary, the motivation section, the background, all the contextual information, reading all of that for all 6 of the RFCs, and then going back to 19 was very helpful for me to kind of get a macro view of what's changing at a high level and kind of the why behind everything. Because that helps it make way more sense from an application perspective for me. And then diving into each of the requirements, I was able to say, oh, okay, I have a general idea. And then once you got through all 6, you can skim back through them and catch what you missed.
Right. Because and this is what I started to say, Tanner, was because, just looking at 19 in a vacuum, it's like, oh, well, what about the readiness assessment costs, right? They're not captured here. Well, looking at other RFCs, FedRAMP Ready is going away, right? So yeah, looking at it holistically, I think is very important. And when you're trying to digest these.
Yeah, and honestly, they might even expect to pick up even though they're not going to be interested in Ready for the future, as we find out in a later RFC.
Yeah,
they may be capturing those costs in this legacy assessment costs piece, because they are going to require you to basically go back and. I mean, the way it reads, they want you to go all the way back to when you started and report what the assessment costs have been all through time.
Right.
Yeah.
The only other thing that's kind of jumping out, well, I don't want to say jumping out, but that I'm seeing here is, and I might just be missing it, so keep me honest, Tanner. I know you went pretty deep on these as well. The significant change audits. There are a lot of CSPs that regularly schedule significant change audits throughout the year. I see the ongoing assessment costs as it directly, for the annual assessments. I'm not really seeing significant change audit costs, and I wonder if that would be a valuable metric for them to track too. I mean, I would imagine it would be, but I also know there's other RFCs out there for the significant change notification rather than going through the full blown audit. Because I know that one of the drives is to make, especially with 20X, is to expand it by 20X and not be, a 7-figure project for these CSPs to get into the space, right?
Yeah, I mean, that either means that, well, I mean, I know that they're aware of the significant changes, right? Because those get submitted as package updates. But yeah, I mean, maybe they're not aware of how pervasive that is, or how much that could add to customers,
spend
assessment costs.
Yeah, that's possible. So that might be a good comment that we could either add or
I imagine that they will either add that to the ongoing assessment cost requirement, add some language in there to say this includes significant change, or add a similar requirement. And this also connects with one of the later RFCs. I believe it's 21, if I remember correctly. But the expansion of the marketplace, they're wanting to add more details for costs from assessors and advisors. So gathering this information throughout the CSPs that are mentioned on the market, that are listed on the marketplace, will help the PMO, ensure that those costs reported by assessors are accurate, and same thing for advisors. As I foresee some expansion of this requirement to not only include assessment costs directly from the assessor, but including like advisory costs and like manpower hours that it takes for CSPs to provide, subject matter experts for the assessments and gathering evidence. As we know, that's 20X, that's kind of going by the wayside. It's going towards persistent validation, but for all the Rev 5 authorizations, evidence gathering is a hefty amount of work. Internally, third parties, the assessors, the whole gamut.
The other thing we have a lot of RFCs to cover, so we want to move on to the next one. But the one thing I do want to make sure that we're capturing here is that once this RFC closes, they are tentatively planning to put this into effect March 25th of this year. So that's
but that just means that the policy's in effect, right?
Correct.
So the next reporting period
could be right
would apply.
Exactly. So CSPs, all the CSPs that currently have a FedRAMP ATO are going to need to be starting to report this.
Yeah, and just the method and the medium by which they're reporting these costs, just for context for all of our listeners, is that it's going to be an appendix added to your security assessment report. So next time you go through your annual assessment, or through theoretically a significant change assessment, there's going to be additional information that the assessor and the provider works together.
I mean,
that's great information
to report,
Tanner.
But that was for the agency path, right, or Rev 5.
Yes, that's correct.
Rev 5, not 20X.
Yeah, 20X doesn't really say exactly how, down in the 20X requirements, unless I'm missing it. And I may be, because we're doing it live.
Yeah, we're doing it live, right? But no, I think it's important because, all of our Rev 5 customers are going to be like, well, okay, what action do I need to have? What do I need to do for this?
Yeah.
So that's great information, Tanner.
So,
That's going to
so
be
they,
added.
they do enumerate the 20X requirements in a whole separate section, but I'm having a difficult time like seeing any big difference between them other than the appendix call out, that would be in the package information. I'm not seeing a big difference otherwise.
Well, I think from an assessment perspective, I would imagine they want to break them out because the level of effort required from a 3PAO to do a 20X assessment as opposed to a Rev 5 type of assessment, right?
Sure.
So I think that's really why they're breaking it out.
Yeah. And they do bring up the difference between like the initial versus the persistent validation phase.
Exactly.
Like initial and ongoing assessment costs.
Yep.
Yeah, well, this all goes back to the fact that the PMO, like you said earlier, Mike, is trying to reduce the cost of entry. So if they can gather these requirements on 20X side and on the Rev 5 side, the hope and the goal, which I think we're all expecting, is that 20X will have a lower cost across the board, 3,000 providers alike. So
again, I think this is a great discussion we're having on RFC 19. All of our listeners, especially CSPs that are FedRAMP authorized, comment, give the PMO's office as much feedback as we can. That way they have as much information as possible. So if we can move on to 19, I'm sorry, we're on 19. Move on to 20. Sorry, I can count, everyone, I promise.
Yeah, so this one is FedRAMP authorization designations. Basically this is sort of a realignment of terminology around the categorization, the system categorization that we're familiar with from FIPS 199, low, moderate, and high, to more of a number system that to me is sort of reminiscent of DoD with their impact levels, right?
Yeah.
So there's that. There's this need to kind of align with some of the other RFCs as well that they mention, and then what they're trying to do, and when they talk about the motivation behind this change, is disambiguating the whole authorization term, right? Like author, and this is something that I know Pete's mentioned numerous times since I've known him. There's a lot of ambiguity in the federal government, like in the whole industry, about what is a FedRAMP authorization versus a agency authority to operate, and these are grounded in legal concepts as well, right? Because really, the authority to operate, ATO, that whole language is a statutory requirement that's put on agency officials dating all the way back to the FSMA legislation, E-Government Act. And, there's a long legacy of legislation that's been amended over time, but it really goes back to that, right? FedRAMP originally for years was basically a workaround, right? It was a way to get that, and they called it a provisional authorization at first, right? Meaning that FedRAMP themselves would do a provisional authorization on behalf of an agency that would ultimately pick it up, look at the risk, and then adopt it, right? But FedRAMP could never buy off on the risk for an agency. Like by law, only an agency official could do that for systems that they operate. So that's really the big thing, is getting away from that authorization word. Like we need to get over to something different.
Certified, right? And we have seen this in the industry also with like CMMC levels, and to your point, the DoD impact levels. So I think it's aligning with the standard nomenclature, for lack of a better term. I will say that I appreciate the table that they have in there that map current Rev 5 authorization levels to the certification numerical levels, right?
Yeah, I mean, the other thing that really clicked for me, and I didn't see this in the motivation section here, but the video that FedRAMP cut, Pete was like, I don't want people to, we need to get away from this FedRAMP low. People assume that means like it's low security. Well, that's not really the intention of low. Low is the category, not the security level. So it's a way to just like, you know what, that's too problematic. and we're going to switch to this numbering system that makes more sense. Yeah. So, I mean, basically what they're, in the table here.
Yeah, that was the table I was referring to.
Yeah. So, they're moving to this system of, and there's also two different terms that they're bringing in. One is certification, right? And that's going to apply more to the Rev 5 requirements, or the Rev 5 pathway. And then there's 20X, they're calling it validated. So two different, not only the numbering system, but then there's also the, validated equals it went through the 20X path, certified equals that it went through the agency path.
Well, I also think, the validation piece if it's the nomenclature that we're using with going through the KSIs, where we're that continuous validation of KSIs and just a mindset for 20X.
Yep. Yeah. And in this new system, certified level 1 is kind of low impact SaaS. That's the alignment. And then FedRAMP is also being very descriptive here about what this really means. And it's that, FedRAMP has validated that there's enough information, right? There's the information required, to make a determination if a system's adequate to use, right? That's very different than FedRAMP saying that, we believe that this system is secure to this level, right?
Right.
That's
right.
a very different.
Yeah. No, I mean, I don't know.
And
that's how many comments we have on this one.
And that's actually okay. I mean, it really is in alignment with how things have been on the agency path all along, right? I just don't think it's ever been as strongly worded as it is here. That FedRAMP is not making a security determination here, right? They're certifying that there's enough information for an agency official to make a determination. Basically what they're saying. Tanner, what were your takeaways on this one?
To me, this might be one of the commenters here, Tanner. Just saying.
Yeah, there's a comment down there from me, but it actually came from a conversation I had with a customer, and it's my only concern, I guess, with this one is probably the best way of saying it, is during agency adoption for 20X that's coming in Q3, Q4 this year. I initially had this thought, but also a customer voiced that what's the perception of agencies anticipated for the words certified versus validated? Is one more robust than the other? Is certified, quote, more good? I think that was another way that one of the commenters put it, is more good
more
than
better.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think that's a valid conversation to have, especially if you're talking to somebody that's not a SME in the space, or, agencies, they're going about their day to day and managing their current ATOs. This is all going to be brand new to them. So curious to see how that perception is going to go. I don't think it'll be too problematic, especially considering I think this is a lot easier to follow. We've also I've seen some comments that are saying that the new FedRAMP certified or validated levels will be more confusing in light of things like CMMC and DoD, because you'll have a bunch of level 1s, 2s, and 3s floating around. But during conversation, folks might get lost in the translation between, are we talking DoD level? Are we talking FedRAMP certified level, validated level, etc.? Overall, I think this one is probably the most important to review first, because I think it's the easiest to interpret, but also it very much informs the rest of the RFCs. So if you haven't reviewed them, I definitely would recommend reviewing this one first.
Well, yeah, I have to say that, the distinctions, I've thought all along that, FedRAMP low should be FedRAMP low, or level 1 should be level 1. Like the idea of having validated versus certified, I think is gonna raise questions. Does it mean that one's more suitable than the other? Does it, what does it imply? So I do think that that's very valid feedback. I also know that, like, just over the years and having conversations with so many different customers and trying to walk them down the path of what they need to do, I would say there's enough complexity built into that to begin with, without adding, more levels and more, and then a split between two different paths. So now it's like, okay, I envision for the next 3 years having to teach people that, well, it's not really modern anymore. It's now this, and that kind of thing.
Yeah, I agree. I think the split is very, and I just had this thought. I think the split's very interesting considering the fact that we're planning to phase out Rev 5 in 2027. If you're establishing this new nomenclature and saying, hey, FedRAMP Rev 5 has become certified, 20X has become validated, but at the end of next year, we're hoping to phase out Rev 5 completely and move fully to 20X for all CSPs. It may cause more confusion than it clarifies, but I guess time will tell.
Yeah, definitely. Anything more on this one? I mean, the other thing that I think that, RFC 20 goes through is the life cycle for each. And they want more opportunity to actually, get the full life cycle represented. Because in a lot of cases, there will be a provider that's wanting to get involved or has actually started the process or maybe is months into it. But they can't get on the marketplace to send that signal to the federal government, that they want to do business. And it's not just the federal government; it's other. There's so many cases that we've seen of other cloud providers that want to use a service that they use in commercial, right? But they're not equally authorized, or they're not authorized at the level of information that they're going to be putting there. So other CSPs are going to be looking for that data as well. And I had to ask a cloud service provider the other day on behalf of a customer who's another CSP, hey, are you guys going to be getting your IL5? Because they wanted to use it in an IL5 capacity for DoD. Yeah. So having a way to signal that, signal intent, signal your plan, would be, I think, a benefit to agencies and the industry.
Yeah, I mean, my only other piece of feedback on this is, like, I agree with you with having had many conversations with a lot of customers over, FedRAMP High IL5, FedRAMP Moderate IL4, and all the cross mapping. I think that aspect of the conversation will be easier. Some of the confusion, I'm hearing what Tanner's saying is, when I say, hey, I'm certified level 5. Does that mean I'm IL5? Is there reciprocity there? I see there could be some confusion there. Hey, I am level 5, so I can sell in DoD space. Well, they're different. They're different, right? So it's just a different way of explaining it to customers, I think. I mean, it's really just about getting our heads around changing it up. I do think the conversations around authorized, like PATO versus ATO, versus certified versus validated, I think those conversations will be a lot easier, because in the past that was very confusing for customers to understand. Like, FedRAMP cannot give you an ATO.
Right.
It's a provisional ATO, and then an agency still has to give you like a reuse ATO, essentially, back in the JAB days. I think it'll make those conversations easier, because to me that makes sense. Basically just keying back on what you said about, it's really up to the agencies to accept the risk. It's FedRAMP's not going to accept the risk on behalf of the agencies. So,
right. Yeah. 100%.
Awesome. So I think
I really love the marketplace improvements, though. I mean, the only other thing that really jumped out at me is the nuance between, certified level 3 and 4.
Yeah.
Is just really about the balance improvements. And then there's no corrective action. The balance improvements thing to me is gonna, it feels like these things are going to merge into level 3 and 5 at some point, so. Right?
Yeah.
Instead of them being, independent like this.
I do wonder if it's going to do that, because like even the DoD impact levels, it's what, 2, 4, 5, and 6. Like there's no 3.
Yeah, they were like, why do we need a 3? I don't know.
Where did 1 go? Right. So
yeah, and I think it's very smart by the PMO to incentivize CSPs to go ahead and start implementing those balance improvements now in anticipation for pursuing certified level 4 or certified level 6, because the balance improvements are a vital part of the AFR KSIs for X. And, like I mentioned earlier, 20X going the way of the dinosaur next year, it positions CSPs in a good place to be prepared for that transition by having some of the KSI requirements taken care of.
You mean Rev 5?
He means Rev 5 going the way of the dinosaur.
Got Rev 5,
is not going the way of the dinosaur.
20X is going the way of the Flash right now. But,
exactly, right?
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. So we still have 3 or 4 more KSIs to cover.
4 more
RFCs to cover.
Are you going to be the
KSIs?
Count?
You like that?
Are you going to be the count?
I'm going to be count. Yeah, Sesame Street.
3 RFC.
1 RFC. Love it.
All right, RFC 21. Expanding the FedRAMP marketplace.
So again, this one is scheduled to close on February 19th. We're still on the first 3 that close on February 19th. So again, I'm going to say it again. Comment if you're hearing what we're talking about and you like it strikes a thought. Go in to these. We'll have the links below on whatever platform you're listening on. Go in and drop a comment to the PMO. That way they can get as much feedback as possible.
Yeah, so really, this RFC is all about expanding the FedRAMP marketplace and making it more like a marketplace, right? Because the whole idea of a marketplace is you can walk in and kind of buy something.
Exactly.
Right? So, I mean, I think that's the vision. It may take a lot longer to get to the point where you can add to cart and pay for it right there. Yeah,
that'll be something.
But yeah, I mean, I think that's the vision. What's the pricing information? What's the other data about about each CSP? They also talk about expanding the marketplace to provide information about advisory and consulting companies, and also to get sort of their pricing structure and things like that, so that it's a shopping place to go to pick up advisors and those who have GRC tooling and platforms and other cloud services that could be leveraged in the process.
Right. I mean, I really see this RFC as, coming directly from feedback FedRAMP received from the agencies, right? Like, hey, we're in your marketplace. Yay. I can see that the FedRAMP authorized. I can see who the 3 PAOs are. But now I've got to reach out to them and do all the things, right? Which I think it just, to your point, makes it more of a marketplace. I do think it would be really cool if it is something, kind of like the AWS marketplace, right? Where you can, I want to buy this here. And I think that could really open things up for the federal agencies looking to do these reuses, or, make it easier for them to review the package, review the KSIs, or, the constant validation for 20X, right? I think this is just another movement towards that optimization, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think this aligns. Or go ahead, Jason.
No, you go.
I was just going to say, this aligns perfectly with what the PMO has already done with the ADS balance improvement, the authorization data sharing balance improvement, which is where they've defined requirements for the trust center. So that trust center being a public web page where CSPs can share authorization data that is publicly available, such as KSI validation status or corrective action status if applicable, but then also offer like a private view where customers that have already purchased or are already sponsoring that provider can sign in and see more specific details or things that might be redacted to the public view. So that trust center, I know one of the requirements here notes that the trust center link has to be included as part of your marketplace listing if you're a provider.
Oh yeah, great call out. And really, the trust centers are that extension of the marketplace, I think, in part of that vision, right?
Yep. And it also adds. I just happened to read this. Like I was thinking about it from the agency side, right? But if you scroll back up to summary, Jason, you can see, or is it maybe a little too far? The 4th bullet down. The independent assessors will be required to provide additional information, including pricing structure, right there on the FedRAMP marketplace, so that even CSPs looking for that independent assessor, it can help streamline that, make it a little faster. I think it'll also make it a little more competitive.
Should be interesting.
Yeah, I think we all know it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, it's I'm not sure what's going to happen there, but we'll see.
The industry has put similar comments in to Jason, where they talked about,
Yeah.
pricing is complicated.
It is.
How do you represent your pricing structure accurately so as not to overpromise, but also show yourself as competitive to the market. So
right.
yeah,
Yeah, and
And it
interesting
gives
is a
it gives all your
diplomatic point.
competitors insight into that as well.
Mm-hmm.
And then you've got, what I would be afraid of is the scoping
right.
is going to be very narrow in the pricing that's put out publicly to keep it as low as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Super small
right.
infrastructure running on
Yep.
all containers.
Yeah.
Super
So
small footprint.
it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. Yeah. So outside of that, I think it's good stuff. I mean,
I think it is.
well, and I think critically it gives like our customers, our CSP customers, another way to signal intent earlier. Another way to signal that you're serious about getting into the marketplace, because like they say, in the motivation section here, that one of the main ways that CSPs do this today is by doing a big press release. But then it's like, then what? Are they a year later? Are they still serious about it, or did they back off of it, or did that RFP fall through, or what happened?
Right.
So this is just a way to keep that signal there and then update along the way.
Yeah, and Jason, if you scroll down to it says cloud service offerings in the preparation stage. It's one of the subtitles, the major sections. They've also, going back to what we talked about in RFC20, they note that there's the new paths for authorization, or excuse me, certification/validation, have the preparation state, which is the first stage in the process. Formerly this was either FedRAMP in process or FedRAMP ready, right? And there's
this is ahead of that, in my opinion, because ready, to be ready, you had to be prepared already, and then go through a readiness assessment. You already had to have a production, level system.
Yep. Well, let me clarify what I mean by that. I agree. I think that preparation doesn't require the same level of effort that Ready does, nor does it necessitate FedRAMP sponsorship like FedRAMP in process did previously. But it is still equivalent to those two, in that this is the new first stage that you can be listed on the marketplace. Previously, getting listed on the marketplace at all, that first stage either cost a lot of money or sponsorship already. And now there's an option for kind of like the future authorized or certified CSPs can be listed ahead of time, and then that can inform sponsorship discussions way earlier and long before a large investment, time and money wise, is taken by CSPs. So the preparation stage is, I think, something that might go under the radar for a lot of people. It makes me really excited.
Yep, they're asking you to have some things on your website. Oh, this is for advisors.
Yep. You have advisors, assessors.
Yeah, the preparation stage, they've essentially noted that there's a small subset of requirements specific to authorization data sharing and collaborative Conmon, which is the updates that they're making to the Conmon review process. Obviously, at this stage, you wouldn't have a sponsor yet. And then you have to demonstrate continuous progress, and you have 1 year to become FedRAMP certified or validated once you get that preparation designation. So you can hit running very quickly and still have a year on the marketplace before you're required to even go through an assessment per se, or a year to get your certification and validation.
Right.
That kind of aligns with what they're doing now, right? With the current, you have a year from
FedRAMP Ready.
Well, not even from FedRAMP Ready, from that kickoff meeting with the PMO.
Yeah, in
you
process.
then have a year, to go in process, you have a year to obtain that ATO.
Yep.
So to me, it kind of aligns with those timelines because, again, they're not really doing the FedRAMP Ready thing anymore. It's more of a.
I think they had too many that were staying in process,
yeah,
kind of indefinitely,
right?
And then that would raise more questions, and it's like we need a way to get them off the marketplace if they're not proceeding through the process,
right?
But having advisors, that's something I remember thinking about, years ago, that it'd be nice to. Back when we were just doing advisory, it'd be nice to have kind of a way to get listed there.
Right. I mean, do you think that would also require the A2LA certification that current assessors need to have to be listed? Or
I mean, it's very notable that they're not requiring that here.
right, that was what I was getting at.
You know, and A2LA and ISO 17020 is all about the assessment process, not knowing
Advisory.
how to prep for it. So I don't think that would be appropriate.
Well, there are attestation requirements. There's not really any corrective actions, like you haven't failed to meet any of the requirements. Cool. Anything else of note for this RFC?
Yeah, I mean the biggest thing for independent assessors is requiring the pricing info and all that. There's a whole separate RFC on that, RFC19.
Yeah, but it doesn't really say it says pricing structure, like how they price it. I don't know. I mean, I think that could be open to interpretation a little bit. Like, maybe it's.
I think it could too, but
yeah.
Going back and listening to the videos that FedRAMP cut on these.
Yeah, I think they're going to have high expectations for.
What they don't want to hear is feedback that the price said this on the marketplace, but I got charged that, or
exactly.
I got quoted this. So
yeah, a lot of the comments that I've seen on this RFC is around, what is FedRAMP's specific guidance on what is defined pricing structure? What is the rubric that assessors need to meet? Same thing for advisors. What is a rubric that advisors need to meet in order to provide that pricing structure? So, and I think that'll help FedRAMP be protected from claims that their requirements didn't protect CSPs enough from that exact situation you described, Jason.
Yeah, and and I get it. It's tough. Even we have some very big clients, right? That the scope of what we do for them is completely different than the scope that we do for a 20x customer. A smaller CSP that's going through 20x, and then everything in between. So I get it. It's very difficult to come up with like, here's my small, medium, and large advisory fee when the scope of what we do for certain customers varies so widely.
Well, there's also a lot of engineering work that we put in for a lot of customers too, and there's continuous monitoring work. Continuous monitoring varies greatly depending on the scope of the environment.
I mean, we have a customer now with how many thousands of endpoints?
Right, exactly. It's like, holy smokes.
22,000.
Yeah, so I think the clear pricing structure, I mean, it could be, how some of these EDR solutions price their packages, right? Like X to Y number of assets be in this range. Another range would be in this price point. So, I mean, to me, that would be clear. But I mean, that's really the only way I see to meet this. How that fits for each individual assessor. I mean, for an assessor, I mean, I would think that would be reasonable. I mean, as far as pen testing and red tape, I mean, to me, I mean, unless it has to be endpoint. Like, how many different?
I mean, the red teaming we've seen all over the place.
All over the place,
I mean, just,
right?
Yeah, I mean, from $5,000 to $35,000.
Correct. So it's like it's the same exercise, right?
Right.
For the red team. Pen testing, I can understand depending on how many endpoints you have to pen test. So, but I think you can use the same strategy that we were just talking about.
Right. But, all right. Anything else we want to bring up on this one?
Go leave a comment.
Leave a comment.
Leave a comment. Don't comment on our video. Comment.
Yeah, exactly.
Comment on GitHub.
We will not be copying comments from our video over to GitHub for you. Sorry.
All right. RFC22.
Leveraging external frameworks. So this one doesn't close until the end of February.
All right, Tanner, why don't you walk through one of these?
Yeah. So RFC22, in my review of this, the way that I would summarize this one is, first of all, it's only applicable to the 20X path, or the new FedRAMP validated path as defined in RFC20. And this new path is a way for CSPs to obtain a FedRAMP validated level 1 validation. by also being able to leverage some external frameworks. So, Jason, if you'll scroll down to, it's the second requirement that they denote, MKT LEF ASF. So RFC22, for context, this is only applicable to the 20X path or the FedRAMP validated path, is a validation framework and method that the PMO has defined in this RFC for CSPs to obtain a level 1 FedRAMP validation. So this is equivalent to a pilot validation without the need for an assessment from a independent assessor team.
Well, it's not requiring an additional independent assessment. It's not saying they don't need to be assessed, right? It's just they won't have to have the additional FedRAMP assessment, right?
That's correct. They'll still need to go through the validation process with the PMO to obtain their FedRAMP validation, but an additional assessment from a non-PMO party to get this level 1 validation is not going to be required.
They don't have to go through a FedRAMP recognized independent assessor.
Right.
That's correct.
Yeah, they'll still have to have their whatever framework they have, SOC 2 or whatever it is, assessment done.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and that brings us into one of the tweaks that FedRAMP has made to the process for making this easier. So, Jason, if you'll scroll down to the approved security frameworks requirement.
Golly, you're just skipping all the good stuff in the front. Golly.
Yes, right here. So, part of this requirement to help support FedRAMP's validation of the system is that the provider has to have completed a security assessment from the following list. So this was the security assessment you were just talking about, Mike.
Yeah.
They may not need to go through a trusted assessor, which is the new term that FedRAMP is using for what formerly was known as the 3PAO. You don't have to do those assessments, but you still have to do an assessment of either SOC 2, Type 2, ISO, High Trust, StateRAMP, CMMC, FedRAMP Ready for a limited time. But it's not, and this is not necessarily in a extensive or comprehensive list of the frameworks that are allowed, but this is a subset that FedRAMP has included. So the way that I've interpreted this and some of the internal conversations we've had, as well as conversations with customers, is that this new FedRAMP validated level 1 pathway, where you can use your external, other security frameworks that you're approved and authorized at, as well as not needing a trusted FedRAMP assessment. To me, this kind of reads as the new FedRAMP ready path for the 20X side of things. So if you want to go a step beyond being in FedRAMP preparation, as we talked about earlier, and achieve something that's not quite, get your level 1, but you don't need a FedRAMP assessment, and you can use costs that you've already invested in attaining, like a SOC or an ISO or a StateRAMP, to help support your FedRAMP journey.
And I think that this also lends right into, going into that next low or next level 1 validated, my bad, it kind of lends to some of the comments that have come out of the PMO's office and Pete, where he speaks specifically about, does everyone really need to be moderate or high? Like maybe a low will suffice. So I honestly think it'll be a step past FedRAMP Ready, Tanner, where it can actually be used by an agency or given an ATO at that 20X low validated level.
I mean, they're saying that it's suitable for pilot use and things like that. Yeah. I mean, that's the goal, right?
Yeah.
It's a minimum barrier to entry, something that they can kind of hang that, hey, there's been some scrutiny on this provider.
Yeah, it's not a black box, right? Like it's actually been audited and tested.
Yeah.
Well, and the goal for this is, again, going back to what we talked about earlier, with getting listed on the marketplaces, showing progress without having to spend the whole kit and caboodle. You can then have a much better chance of obtaining customers, obtaining sponsorship to move you towards, the later stages to basically expand your brand and make money. Which Jeff, from our customer success leader, he's said something recently that's really resonated with me is, yes, FedRAMP is a security framework, but it's also a business framework and a business pipeline. And that's a major reason why FedRAMP's making these changes.
Yeah, there's a massive chicken and egg problem that's existed in FedRAMP since the time we've been doing it. And it's, you need FedRAMP to talk to the agencies, and you need an agency to
to
achieve
get FedRAMP. Yep.
So
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and this is definitely a step in the right direction to get you over that, that initial barrier to entry for sure.
Yeah, the PMOs also denoted what seems to be the short list, if you will, of controls that providers will need to map their current frameworks and assessments. Yep, there's what you're sharing out there, Jason. You'll need to map like your SOC 2, your ISO, high trust again, whatever framework you're using. You'll need to map those requirements and the results of your external framework assessment to these requirements in order to help the PMO make the designation for you at FedRAMP validated level 1.
I'm sure as CSPs start to use this and leverage this pathway, so to speak, I'm sure that there will be lots of mappings and even advisors that will help with mappings from some of these well-known frameworks, right? Because SOC 2 and the ISO frameworks have been around a while. State ramp/GovRamp, I mean, that's, they're basically using the NIST 853 framework as well. So yeah, I'm sure mappings will be out there to really make this a viable path for a lot of CSPs. I really think it's a step in the right direction. I think it's awesome. But we're going to continue to say this. If you have a comment, click into the GitHub link for RFC22 and add a comment.
Yeah, and I really think this. I remember in the initial conversations, this was one of the first, the 4 working groups that were created.
Yeah.
I remember this one felt like it got the least amount of traction. Like nobody could wrap their head around, what it would look like to let, one of those other frameworks somehow equal part of FedRAMP. Like I think the whole industry had a hard time.
Exploded their brain.
Yeah. It's like mind blown. But I think the PMO has done a really good job with painting a vision for this of what it could be, and making it happen in a way that I think makes a lot of sense.
Well, it really empowers the government to be able to use a lot of these modern tools as well, right? Because, a lot of these CSPs that are going for this, they have a commercial offering that they're currently selling and using. It's very secure. It enables.
Well, and in reality, we know that agencies are using the commercial editions of those in different pockets, whether it's something they should be doing or not.
Right.
So we know that that's what's been going on. That in a lot of cases, that's the only way to pilot something, especially if it's something innovative that's not been seen before, right? Like,
right.
Well, you got to pilot it to even know that it exists, that you even want it to begin with, and then to say, hey, I want that so much that I want to sponsor that, or I want to be involved with the making that happen, making that get through the FedRAMP process previously.
Yeah. Anything else, Tanner?
No, I think you guys summarized it very well. Like you said, Mike, if you have a comment, click into the GitHub link and leave a comment.
I think we've beat that horse.
Yeah. Don't comment on the video. Comment in GitHub. All right. That takes us to
RFC22.
Oh, my favorite. This one excites me a lot. I'm very excited to talk about this one.
Yeah, this one hasn't gotten any interest at all, has it?
Yeah, no one is interested in this. Oh my goodness. I think this has sparked the most interest from a lot of our customers that we're working with.
Absolutely.
Because I mean, really, what has been one of the biggest struggles, and I'm glad that, to hear some of this come out of the PMO's office, is one of the biggest struggles that CSPs have is getting that initial ATO. Like, because maybe they're engaged with an agency that has just never issued one. They didn't know the path, or they're engaged with an agency that's done so many, and it's a big machine, and they have to get integrated into that machine with that agency, right?
Well, that and ultimately, I'll use the words of Gary Damer. The FedRAMP was broken for years.
Way to throw Gary right under the bus.
No. I mean, he's gone public with that.
I know, he has, and
I mean, we've talked about it in as much, but it was broken so badly that agencies didn't want to deal with it.
Yeah.
They didn't want to get involved with it because, maybe they really wanted to use something. But if they did use it, it was going to, it might be 2 years before it was authorized.
Right. And in the
before
marketplace, yeah.
before they could use it.
Mhm.
So it was broken in that kind of way where it was hindering the demand.
Mhm.
Especially from getting agencies more involved with it. So, I think a lot of these RFCs are designed to try to fix that.
Agreed.
But
Yeah, and
yeah, I mean, the bottom line here is I think the PMO is acknowledging that there's a lot of CSPs that are a good way into the Rev 5 path, but have, for one reason or another, in most cases, not related to anything that they did. They've lost their sponsor, or they've lost their path for some other reason.
Right.
Right. And we've got a couple of customers that are in that very position that for one reason or another, they've lost a sponsor, or a contract was pulled, or, what have you. They've sort of lost their means of finishing the process.
Right, exactly. And for those that aren't watching the video, this RFC23 is a Rev 5 program certification. So this is a FedRAMP certification.
I mean, a program certification means it's the PMO that's basically
providing the certification,
providing the, dare I say, sponsorship. It's not really a sponsorship, but they're allowing you to get through the process, even through the Rev 5 pathway,
right?
Without that agency sponsor being involved.
I mean, it's almost, dare I say, reminiscent of the JAB, but without the three different agencies coming together, right? The way I read it, unless I missed something, guys. But it's really just a FedRAMP piece of that certification, and it removes those hurdles you were just talking about, Jason, for that roadway, because a lot of the agencies are like, well, I can't use you. I have this OMB memo that says I can only use FedRAMP certified products, and you're not there yet. Oh, but we'll authorize. Okay, well then I can't use you for 2 years. Well, I need something tomorrow. Tomorrow's a little slight exaggeration, but you know what I mean. I need something much sooner than 2 years. So this has been really encouraging, and again, to that point, a lot of our customers have been really excited about this one. I've been asking a lot of questions about this one, at least to us. Let's see, are there a lot of comments at the bottom down here? Just a few, not too many.
I mean, they are saying that they're expecting that they may be able to complete 40 to 50 program authorizations, this year in 26.
Mm-hmm.
And part of this too is to keep CSPs moving down a path into, you remember last year was a banger of a year for FedRAMP because they had the backlog, right? So they were able to empty that backlog out and end up with a record number, massive number of new authorizations, and the marketplace numbers looked really good. This year is going to be different, right? Because you've got more of a paced growth coming through the Rev 5 path.
Right.
Not this explosive growth that they had last year by emptying the queue. And
props to them for that, by the way, because that had to be a lot of work.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I remember watching the diagrams I did that showed the spike and all. And you could tell where they kind of finished. Things leveled off a little bit.
Exactly.
But yeah, they're going to have a hard time reaching those kind of numbers this year because Rev 5 is on this paced growth path, right? Of just the pipeline of as they come in, right? Mm-hmm. First in, first out. And then the, 20X is still building momentum, right? They're still doing the pilots, and they're building demand and momentum for 20X. So by opening this, right, they're opening up the potential to fatten up that Rev 5 pipeline.
Exactly.
And also to probably do some saves, right? To save some that could have fallen out of the marketplace.
Exactly.
Yeah, and they want you to use like GRC tools and things like that. But anything else here, Tanner?
Yeah, I think a couple of important call outs here are that right here, what you got level limited. If you're going for a program certificate or a certification at level 5 or 6, so formerly Rev 5 high, or Rev 5 high plus the balance improvements without corrective action, then this path is not going to be an option. You still need to get sponsorship and obtain the typical Rev 5 or new program or new FedRAMP certification. Additionally, this is a limited time path, so this path will not be open up until the phase out of Rev 5 next year. This will be available until December of this year. I want to say it's December the 16th is when they're going to stop accepting submissions. It is somewhere in this RFC, either the beginning or the end. Yep. Very last requirement, authorization packages must be submitted before December 16th, and there is no grace period. If you do not submit towards this path and wish to pursue a different path without a sponsor, then there's also the validation path available to you.
Yep.
And then a couple of additional just important things for CSPs to know if they're wanting to pursue this. If you pursue this path, any new balance improvements, so not counting the balance improvement requirements that are currently available, as new balance improvements come out from FedRAMP, should they release some, you will need to pursue all of the betas, including the first beta, for any future balance improvements. This does not mean that you need to be a current participant in the betas that have just kicked off yesterday we're filming this as of February 3rd. You do not need to be a participant in the betas that are currently happening for ADS, VDR, and CCM. This is a clarification that we've gotten from the PMO regarding this requirement.
And I also want to know, this is the RFC I was referencing earlier where they're announcing retiring FedRAMP Ready and migrating to legacy FedRAMP Ready as they move to transition to this FedRAMP overall program certification. I think it's exciting stuff. I really do. I think it really does open the door and create opportunities. And I look forward to seeing what kind of products that this adds to the marketplace.
Yep. Cool. All right. One more to go.
One to go. Thanks for hanging with us. If you're still here, you deserve a medal.
All right. Machine readable packages.
RFC24. So this is one, when this one first dropped, where did my brain first go? OSCAL, right? I mean, how long has OSCAL been a thing? Like, it seems to me
10 years.
Right. And
maybe more like 6 or 7.
It's probably like 6 or 7, but yeah, I mean, it feels like it's been a long time, right? And it's always been kind of like right on the cusp to get over the edge. I really like where we're going with this. I think machine readable packages, the age of AI, the age of automating everything, it's where we need to move to. This huge Word document authorization package that gets sifted through. I mean, you're not even really able to parse it easily. Very difficult to maintain. I just really see this one as very promising. The biggest question I think I have is, is it? Let me back up. So they're really talking about you have to use OSCAL unless 3 or more CSPs come together and agree on another type of language. I'm thinking JSON. But then, if I'm an agency looking at this, how many different frameworks am I going to have to support? What tool am I going to have to buy just to support ingesting this machine readable format? What tool is a CSP going to have to purchase just to make this machine readable? Or is it going to be something that's provided by FedRAMP? I just have some questions here, if that makes sense.
Well, look here. It is 10 years old.
Oh, look at that. Good guess.
Yeah. OSCAL got so, I mean, they're calling all this out here as almost a history lesson.
Right.
But it's been 9 years, and in 2025, FedRAMP processed 100 Rev 5 authorizations without a single submission that used OSCAL.
Yeah.
Because
agencies have to ingest it, right?
Well, and to be fair, I also think that the PMO was saying we're not ready for it yet, if I remember right. I mean, because we had customers that wanted to, but that's what I remember. But and there was a
3 PAOs have to be able to ingest it as
kind
well.
of all the stakeholders need to be able to interoperate or have a tool that can leverage it. But Yeah, that, and I remember there was a contractor that was in using or building a support tooling and all for OSCAL, that looked like it had kind of become a quagmire as well. So yeah.
What's Tanner? You're awfully quiet over there.
No, just listening to the cool conversation. Yeah, I'm kind of with Jason. I think it's been interesting reading into this and seeing where this one's going to go. I think this is very interesting, particularly that call out that nobody used OSCAL during the 2025 submissions. So, I think all of this also aligns very well with the efforts on the 20X side to make things machine readable and easily processable, if that's really a word, with agencies. If agencies have a standardized way to process packages and authorization data from CSPs using machine readable format, the level of effort on the agencies will reduce significantly. So I'm very excited to see what the PMO puts out in April. April's when they're putting out specific guidance on what these requirements will mean at a more granular level. Think a rubric per se. So excited to see what the PMO releases on that front moving forward.
I always thought that one of the best uses of OSCAL or any kind of machine readable format of the authorization documents in general, or the documents that came along after after the authorization's done, was for transmitting conmon information, or continuous monitoring data, just because that's already very much at least it's really structured data. Some might call it semi-structured, right?
Well, it is. I mean, for common data, you already have to submit the machine readable scans from your
submitting the
scans,
and and they were parsing those,
and then you're submitting your poem in their template so they can ingest it into their whatever tool they use to do the comparison over one poem over the next. Like, you can't even change the columns because it messes up their cross mapping, right? So yeah, I mean, I think from that perspective, I think that was as close as they've got so far. Even that, there's some inconsistencies in the type of output the vuln scanners give you. Sometimes you get XML, sometimes you get CSV, sometimes you get some other format, JSON, right?
Remember, OSCAL can be JSON.
Yeah.
Or YAML.
YAML.
But yeah, there's other, I guess the bottom line there is there's other formats that could be leveraged, other schemas, essentially.
I think it's just going to boil down to agencies being able to ingest it, to process it, 3 PAOs, FedRAMP, just getting alignment across the board, if that makes sense.
Yep.
But I am 100% for automating this process, having been someone to write several SSPs.
Yeah.
100% for this. I would love for,
the way that we've approached SSPs is more, I mean, we do use some degree of generative AI for like some of the statements.
Yeah.
And control statements and things like that. But, for us, templating, worked really well with our approach, because we found so many, good ways to implement controls leveraging AWS native services. So for us, it was, templating for us in SSP is like so easy to churn out.
Well,
right?
now,
yeah.
Back when I started, it really wasn't so easy. I mean, we did have some templates, but we weren't as prescriptive with the environments that we built. I think with the accelerator environments and deploying in XPU 40 with that prescriptive, there's really a toggle of a few different tools that you use.
Right.
I think it really has made that be more seamless and streamlined. I mean, really what I would love to see for the OSCAL and the automated SSP generation is, and I think you've actually brought this up before in some internal calls, is having an automated way to generate the SSP out of the environment based on just certain configurations, like within AWS, within the big hyperscalers, for those configurations, like running a script that would tell you, hey, how is access control configured here? How, is MFA configured? What tool are they using? I mean, there might be some things that you have to fill in, but you know what I mean?
I think in a lot of ways you could take the KSI outputs and start to get to that, right?
You can.
Yeah. The KSI checks. But at that point, sometimes the evidence is the narrative, right? Those outputs become the narrative if they're going to drive a generated, narrative.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And we don't want to, come to this point where it's like your AI summarizing what my AI wrote.
Exactly.
I mean, it just gets kind of ridiculous. Like, well, what are humans going to be doing? Nobody knows.
No one knows.
All right. Anything else on this one? There's quite a bit to this one.
There is a bit to this one. Definitely take some time reading through this one. I believe this one is one of the RFCs that close on the 26th of this month. Yeah, I believe so.
With this RFC, I think part of this could really help the federal government writ large as well. Like we've spoken with CIOs and agencies that are dealing with hundreds of FSMA packages, not just FedRAMP packages.
Yeah.
And
Conmon packages as well, right?
Yeah,
with all different formats.
Is part of that. And FedRAMP isn't going to solve that. I mean, FedRAMP is solving that from the cloud perspective, but it's not going to solve that for the FSMA packages that are being managed inside of these agencies.
And I'm glad you brought that up, because another aspect of it is these agency or these CSPs that are going for the DISA impact levels are still based on the FedRAMP moderate and high SSP packages with the addendum, right? So they need to still submit those packages because the DoD is not going to be ingesting those. So, and I mean,
yeah,
I would like to think that whatever automated tool that they're using will be able to take that Word doc, convert it into an OSCAL framework. I mean, I know we've done some dabbling in that with some of our tooling, so it is possible to do. It's almost like maintaining two things, if that makes sense, which it kind of already is anyway. It was just adding another thing.
Adding more things
to the things.
All right. Tanner, you got anything else?
He's muted over there.
It's a lot, it's exciting. I really like where things are going, but you've got to be involved with these GitHub threads and reviewing RFCs, reviewing balance improvement requirements, talking with your stakeholders, trying to, let your agency sponsors know ahead of time what's happening. And also, watching videos from FedRAMP, or you even go into LinkedIn, checking out Pete's LinkedIn page, which I know he can't use right now with the government shutdown happening. But, all of that, there's a lot of information out there. You just got to go find it. So, but again, it's very exciting. Super excited to see where FedRAMP's going.
Absolutely. And with that, Jason, thanks for joining us.
I was going to let you close it out.
You're going to let me close it out?
Yeah.
Okay. And with that, there's your latest episode of Behind the Shield, this time with Mike, Jason, and Tanner. Please like and subscribe below. That way we can keep doing these podcasts and bringing you this information. Thanks again.